A plain woman was led to a small waiting area in the airport's economy class. The airport personnel concluded that her appearance suggested she was not a genuine traveler. That was the initial error they made. Just a day later, her billionaire husband arrived in a private jet, leaving all those who had humiliated her completely at a loss for words. A woman with an unassuming appearance entered Gate B32 of the city's largest international airport. From that moment forward, every experience she encountered became a gradual descent into disbelief and humiliation. She appeared out of place in the busy terminal, surrounded by professionals sporting polished shoes, sleek roller bags, and exclusive lounge passes. Her attire was unadorned, her hair neatly secured, and her baggage a battered suitcase from years gone by. She donned a weathered gray cardigan atop a crisp white t-shirt paired with relaxed jeans and canvas sneakers that had seen better days, their former trendiness now faded into a sense of casual wear. She was the type of wanderer you might envision nestled in a corner, quietly enjoying a cup of inexpensive coffee in a small, crowded waiting area. Initially, she went unnoticed by everyone. Indeed, that was somewhat of the problem. She existed in the shadows. As she approached a passing flight attendant to inquire about the possibility of an upgrade, her heart was set on surprising her husband with a rare experience of flying business class. She received a dismissive shake of the head. It wasn't anything to worry about, she mused. She merely wished to ask, to find out if there was a possibility. If that's not possible, economy seating would be acceptable. She inhaled deeply and settled into a chair tucked away in the corner, cradling her purse in her lap. She was known as Harper. An unusual tranquility washed over her as she observed the throng of travelers flowing past. However, the tranquility was short-lived. It was roughly an hour before boarding when the real complications started to unfold. A vigilant TSA officer conducted a thorough inspection of the seating areas, scrutinizing for any suspicious individuals or objects. He halted as soon as he spotted Harper, his gaze sweeping over her outfit. She presented a smile, a blend of anxiety and warmth. He was completely dismissive of it. "Ma'am," he said, his voice resonating in the spacious terminal with its soaring ceilings. "Could you please show me your ID and boarding pass?" Harper acquiesced and passed them along, eager to avoid any complications. The officer examined her documents with an unusual intensity, turning them over and over. She journeyed solo, devoid of any family presence, and the name on her ticket read just Harper Cook. She was not part of a business group. Her luggage lacked any elaborate tags. She appeared to be just an ordinary person. "What destination are you heading to today?" he inquired. "Vancouver?" Harper responded, gulping down a lump in their throat. "Planning a brief getaway?" His eyes wandered to the sparse bags resting at her feet. "What brings you to travel?" She blinked, puzzled by the intensity of his gaze. "Are you considering a personal visit?" She responded. "Only a brief visit?" It seems he was not fond of that response. "Whom are you planning to see?" "I will be meeting my husband there." "Where's your husband at this moment?" She moved restlessly. "He isn't here with me right now. He is journeying on his own." The officer scrutinized her expression before shifting his gaze to her identification. "Stay put," he commanded, moving aside to murmur into a walkie-talkie. Harper picked up a handful of words. "Potential issue. Examine that sort of matter closely." Her stomach nodded, yet she made an effort to remain composed. "It seems there has been a mix-up." She had journeyed in the past, encountering no issues, yet perhaps the officer detected something off about her worn passport or the simplicity of her attire raised a flag. She felt uncertain. Before long, another officer arrived to accompany him. They exchanged thoughts, stealing occasional glances at Harper. She managed a courteous smile, yet the unease ate away at her insides. Upon their return, they beckoned her to accompany them, emphasizing that her options were limited. And that was how she found herself in a temporary quarantine, as they termed it, in a curtained-off section near the end of the terminal, a space typically reserved for additional security checks or travelers who triggered some kind of alert in the system. She attempted to convey that she had no secrets, that she was merely biding her time for her flight in the economy section, yet the officer's doubt only intensified. She was made to sit in a narrow metal chair at a simple table with her suitcase resting beside it. For the next hour, she faced a barrage of inquiries, her bag being thoroughly searched. Meanwhile, onlookers, airport personnel, and fellow travelers paused to stare at her through the curtains opening, as though she were a figure of intrigue or suspicion. She maintained her composure, never allowing her voice to rise or her temper to flare. Her responses were composed and straightforward. Yet deep down, she sensed her sense of self being eroded. The airport personnel had marked her as questionable solely due to her looks. It appeared there was little she could do to sway their opinions. A supervisor approached at one moment, a woman named Cheryl as indicated by her badge, and scrutinized Harper with an unmistakable air of disdain. "Ma'am," Cheryl said, "we have reason to suspect that your trip may not be as simple as you assert. Do you have any significant sums of money, prohibited items, or anything you need to report?" Harper's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "No, I assure you, I'm simply heading to Vancouver for a personal journey." Cheryl scrutinized Harper's tattered cardigan and battered sneakers as if they were clues to a hidden transgression. "We'll see," she remarked. Next, addressing a team member, "Enter her information into the system. Hold her here until we confirm all the details." The younger subordinate, wearing a look of indifference, nodded in response. "Absolutely, ma'am." He looked at Harper with a hint of sympathy, yet it was insufficient to prompt any action. Time dragged on. Harper observed with a keen eye that other travelers, appearing far more nonchalant, were gliding through the terminal without a hint of hesitation. In that desolate waiting area, she lingered beneath the unforgiving fluorescent lights, responding to the same inquiries repeatedly. They were adamant about referring to it as a routine check. However, it seemed akin to deliberate intimidation. She possessed neither an extravagant watch nor any adornments. Perhaps that led them to believe she had ulterior motives. Perhaps it was the manner in which she held herself, shy and unpretentious. She lacked the refined assurance of the corporate voyagers bustling around her. As Harper lingered in her seat, fragments of dialogue drifted through the curtain, capturing her attention. A member of the ground staff quipped to a colleague, "We've got a lady in there who likely can't even manage a cab fare, much less a flight." The other chuckled, "I have a feeling she's up to something questionable. Have you noticed that suitcase? Timeless. It seems she may have taken a ticket or something similar." Their voices lowered, yet she grasped enough to sense a prickling in her eyes. She blinked rapidly, fighting to hold back the tears. However, that was hardly the most severe situation. Approximately 2 hours later, a fresh set of officials arrived to reassess her account. A tall man, sporting a badge that identified him as Officer Briggs, quickly developed a strong aversion to her. He insisted on examining all her credit cards, requested an explanation of how she financed her ticket, and interrogated her about her employment history. Despite her composed explanation that she was a freelance artist taking commissions online, he remained skeptical. "Are you really saying that your earnings as a freelance painter are sufficient to cover a flight to Vancouver?" Briggs remarked with a disdainful smirk. "Do you have bank statements to back that up?" Harper's voice trembled even as she tried to maintain her composure. "I possess a certain amount of savings. Additionally, my husband lends a hand on occasion. He has a stable financial situation." Briggs and his companion shared a knowing look. "So, where might your husband be at this moment?" She paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. "He'll be joining me there." "That seems suspicious," Briggs murmured. "For all we can ascertain, you might be entangled in smuggling activities." He leaned in, his gaze sharpening. "Have you ever considered the number of individuals who attempt to deceive their way into this airport using counterfeit tickets, pilfered credit cards, and various other schemes? You match the criteria perfectly. An individual without apparent resources or backing." She yearned to voice her dissent, yet her tongue felt burdened. "I'm not invisible," she finally asserted. "I'm merely—" She paused, aware that any phrase could be contorted. Referring to her husband as a billionaire or incredibly wealthy would feel like a tale spun from her imagination, crafted to shield herself from reality. Could they possibly trust her words? Briggs let out an exasperated sigh. "We'll find out soon enough. We will recheck your name in the system. Stay right where you are." With that, he walked away, leaving her in the company of his quiet associate. She sank into the chair. Her flight was set to depart shortly. A sense of looming anxiety washed over her, the fear of potentially missing it entirely. Yet, whenever she attempted to articulate her timeline, they insisted she take a seat and be patient. She found herself in a predicament, utterly alone and without anyone to reach out to. Her phone battery was running low. She thought about reaching out to her husband, yet he frequently became unavailable during specific times. Moreover, she found herself uncertain about the direction that conversation might take. "Hello, dear, I'm currently in airport detention. Could you work your magic on this?" It seemed utterly ridiculous. Ironically, that could have been her fastest escape from this predicament. At last, a female staff member in a sharp uniform, identified by her name tag as Red Evie, stepped into the curtained area. Initially, Harper experienced a fleeting glimmer of optimism that perhaps this woman possessed a deeper understanding. Yet Evie's demeanor was frosty, her stance unyielding. "Come along," Evie instructed. "You will be relocated to a different waiting area." The flight to Vancouver is about to board, yet you haven't received the go-ahead. Patience is required until we find a resolution. Harper felt a tightness in her stomach. With her suitcase in one hand and her purse in the other, she fought to maintain her composure as she trailed behind Evie down the corridor. Onlookers watched intently as she was led away. She caught the sound of a couple of ground staff chuckling softly. A security guard cast a glance her way, laden with judgment. She could nearly sense their thoughts, affirming that woman certainly doesn't fit in. They found themselves in an abandoned lounge area usually set aside for passengers waiting due to delays. The air was thick with the scent of old coffee. The chairs bore the weight of time while the walls exuded a dull beige hue. Evie gestured towards a seat positioned at the rear. Take a seat. Stay put until someone arrives for you. Harper settled into the seat, clutching her purse, her gaze darting around the sparsely populated lounge. Aside from an older woman with a weeping toddler, she found herself in solitude. The woman offered her a look filled with understanding, yet Harper felt too exhausted to reply. Once more, she sensed the sharp prick of tears welling up in her eyes. She pondered the journey that had led her to this moment. Merely an ordinary journey, an unremarkable flight. This was absolutely wild. Time dragged on with excruciating lethargy. She pondered whether the plane had already departed. She envisioned the flight crew delivering their final announcements to the relaxed passengers settled comfortably in their seats. She envisioned the overhead compartments closing, the engines revving to life as she lingered in a dismal lounge. She thought about slipping away, but that would likely lead to an instant capture by the overly enthusiastic TSA. She remained there, quiet tears finally tracing their way down her cheeks. At that moment, the door to the lounge creaked open once more and two staff members entered. A lean man with a meticulous demeanor alongside a woman adorned with an official airport identification lanyard. They advanced directly toward Harper. Are you Ms. Harper Cook? The man inquired, his tone laced with a sense of superiority. Harper brushed away her tears, taking a moment to steady her voice. Indeed, he tapped on the tablet he held in his hand. We kindly request your presence to accompany us. A glimmer of hope sparked within her, suggesting that perhaps they had come to understand their error, that she might be free to leave. Collecting her belongings, she stood up. Is there an issue at hand? The man's lip twisted in disdain. It has come to our attention that there were issues regarding your behavior at the security checkpoint. Excuse me? Harper's eyes widened in astonishment. That is completely false. His tone conveyed a sense of disregard. We must confirm the details of your narrative. Let's get going. Her shoulders drooped. She was completely devoid of any will to resist. She followed them out of the lounge, down a corridor, past expansive windows that offered a view of the runway. The sky had become a dull, heavy blanket of gray. Outside, planes glided along the tarmac, unaware of the unfolding drama within. They found themselves in a cramped office, illuminated by stark lighting, with posters detailing prohibited items plastered on the walls. The woman instructed Harper to place her purse on the desk before proceeding to sign a few forms. Harper went along with it, sensing that she was trapped in a surreal episode of an odd reality series. What is the reason for this occurrence? Harper inquired gently after completing the paperwork. I have not violated any laws. The individual with the tablet shrugged. Staff reports indicate that you were lingering in areas of concern. The TSA identified discrepancies in your responses. It seems you caused quite a stir at the gate. He cast a disapproving glance in her direction. We regard these allegations with utmost seriousness. She gazed at him, her expression one of utter disbelief. I never caused a stir. I simply inquired about some details regarding my flight. That concludes everything. He let out a deep breath, rhythmically tapping his foot. I'm sorry, but the flight you were scheduled to take has already left. You will have to either buy another ticket or... Once more, tears began to gather in her eyes. Yet, they always kept me from reaching the gate. They insisted I had to remain. I didn't commit any wrongdoing. The female employee with her arms crossed shook her head in disapproval. It might be wise to consider a more thoughtful approach to your travel arrangements in the future. Enhance your planning? Harper contemplated. She had meticulously arranged everything. She had arrived at the airport hours early, yet the weight of the entire ordeal left her feeling drained. She pressed her lips together and nodded even as her heart thudded with a mix of frustration and sorrow. As your flight has departed, the man with the tablet continued, you'll need to organize another flight. You are free to go now, but we recommend that you exit the secure area unless you are planning to book a new ticket. Got it? Let her go now? As though she had been detained? A surge of anger coursed through her, yet a sense of relief followed closely behind. At least she wouldn't be trapped in that lounge indefinitely or interrogated by more skeptical TSA agents. She gathered her courage and offered a hesitant nod. Absolutely, understood. They guided her back to the public area of the terminal. She pondered whether this was the sensation of being unceremoniously expelled from a space where she belonged. It might have been. The sliding doors to the main concourse parted and she emerged into the bustling flow of travelers. Individuals rushed past, dragging their wheeled luggage behind them. Pairs stood in line at the check-in counters. Life continued, completely unconcerned with her struggles. She made her way to an unoccupied bench, lowered herself onto it, and rested a hand against her forehead. She needed to determine the best way to reach Vancouver. Her phone was on the brink of dying, yet she managed to power it on just long enough to catch sight of missed calls from her husband, Adam Cook. A sharp sensation coursed through her. He is likely feeling anxious. A rendezvous was set at a hotel close to the harbor in Vancouver. She attempted to return his call, but the phone cut out just as it began to ring. She muttered a string of expletives quietly. She contemplated purchasing a new flight immediately. However, her credit card was nearing its maximum capacity. She possessed some savings, yet much of it was entangled in their shared account, a matter she typically refrained from engaging with. She might reach out to Adam using a payphone or something similar. But hold on, do airports still have payphones these days? She may need to seek out an electronics store to purchase a charger. Her thoughts spiraled with possibilities, each one eclipsed by an overwhelming feeling of deep embarrassment. At that moment, a presence brushed against her elbow. She glanced upward to catch sight of a man clad in a sharp black blazer, an earpiece elegantly coiled behind his ear. He exuded an air reminiscent of private security or perhaps that of a corporate assistant. He examined her features, offered a courteous bow, and inquired, "Ms. Cook?" Her expression darkened. "Indeed?" Her voice carried a rough edge. He offered a faint smile. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out, but your husband requested that I locate you. I go by the name Thomas. I am employed by him." Harper's eyes fluttered in quick succession. "Hold on, you. Are you employed by Adam?" Thomas gave a slight nod. "Absolutely, ma'am. He stands patiently just beyond the threshold. Kindly permit me the honor of accompanying you." Her heart raced with excitement. Had Adam actually come here in person? She stood, hardly aware that her legs trembled beneath her. Thomas guided her along the corridor and out through the main exit doors by the arrival area. The refreshing breeze brushed against her skin. The scent of vehicle fumes mingled with the soft patter of a late afternoon rain as she arrived. And then he appeared, Adam Cook, casually leaning against a polished black SUV. Tall and broad-shouldered, he donned a tailored shirt that resembled attire more suited for an executive than a casual traveler. His hair boasted a rich chestnut hue, gently waving, while his hazel eyes sparkled with relief the moment he caught sight of her. He propelled himself away from the car and hurried towards her. "Harper." He inhaled deeply, enveloping her in his embrace. She released a choked sob, a mix of relief and accumulated tension. He gently caressed her hair. "I was filled with anxiety. Your phone went unanswered. The hotel informed me that you did not check in. I boarded the soonest flight available to return here." Words eluded her, leaving her to simply hold onto him tightly. After a brief pause, she finally managed to force the words out. They denied me boarding the plane. They seemed to think I was up to something or perhaps a bit untrustworthy. I was unable to catch the flight. I was treated as if I had committed a crime." Adam's jaw clenched. "Excuse me? That's absurd. You are fully entitled to soar." He addressed Thomas with a cutting tone. "Please provide me with the details. I seek the identities of those accountable." Thomas tilted his head slightly. "Absolutely, sir. I've gathered some preliminary insights from a few employees I've conversed with internally. We can definitely collect additional information." Adam led Harper to the SUV, assisting her as she settled into the passenger seat. He accompanied her, and Thomas assumed the role of the driver. As they pulled away from the curb, Harper finally found the moment to catch her breath and inquire, "How? What led you to arrive here?" "I reached out to your phone. No response received." Adam articulated, his voice strained. "I attempted to reach out to the airline. It was mentioned that you might have been flagged or something similar. I hurried back here as quickly as possible. No matter the obstacles, I was determined to seek you out." She examined his features intently. Adam Cook typically exuded a sense of calm. He operated a discreet investment firm, subtly building a wealth that remained largely under the radar. His understated nature aligned perfectly with Harper's preferences. She had become enamored with the individual beyond the wealth. However, witnessing his transition into a guardian stance made her realize the extent of his strength and influence when necessary. "It seems like you've had quite a long day," she whispered, observing the delicate creases of tension framing his gaze. He shook his head in disbelief. "No need to concern yourself with my well-being. Please share all the details of what transpired." Thus, she conveyed her thoughts to him. She recounted the doubt, the mocking glances, the relentless questioning, the flight she had to forfeit, and how no one accepted her explanation for needing to travel. As she completed her narrative of the ordeal, a familiar sting returned to her eyes. Adam's face grew stern. "That is completely out of the question," he remarked. "No one deserves to be treated like that, especially not my wife. As soon as we find a moment of peace, I will reach out to the airport authorities." She stifled a sniffle, attempting to muster a smile. "I don't want to cause any trouble," he said, his hand resting gently on her knee. "It's not an issue. It's a matter of fairness. You experienced an unjust humiliation." He stopped for a moment, looking out the window at the airport fading into the distance. "Additionally, we should make our way to Vancouver, correct? Let's proceed in our unique style. Is this our path?" Her voice resonated. He flashed a subtle smile, one that suggested a touch of playful cunning. "There's a purpose behind Thomas being here with me. The company possesses a private jet. We shall utilize it. We will personally escort you to Vancouver." Her eyes fluttered in quick succession. "A personal aircraft? However, that seems quite lavish." His gaze became gentler. "Harper, I want to ensure your journey is both safe and comfortable, particularly considering everything you've experienced. Let's just say you've truly deserved it." She bit her lip, filled with doubt. She had yet to experience a journey aboard Adam's private aircraft. He had brought it up once, yet she consistently preferred to travel the conventional route. She aimed to avoid appearing disconnected or dependent on luxury. Yet, in the wake of all that had transpired, the idea of bypassing lines, evading the disdain of gate agents, and sidestepping the scrutiny of TSA felt like a fantasy. She released a trembling breath. "Very well," she finally declared. Adam gently squeezed her hand in a gesture of support. "Excellent. Let's make it happen." Thomas navigated them to a more intimate, specialized terminal located on the outskirts of the airport where private jets and charter planes received their care. It belonged to the same airport complex, yet it felt like a completely different realm. No longer were there bustling check-in counters and glaring neon signs for baggage claims. Instead, they arrived at a polished structure labeled Executive Aviation, where a sharply dressed attendant hurried out to swing the door open. The gentle drizzle had evolved into a soft rain, yet the attendant raised an umbrella high, welcoming them with a warm smile. Harper was captivated by the sheer simplicity of the process. She hardly registered the subtle security checkpoint. The staff immediately identified Adam, greeting him as Mr. Cook with a quiet respect. Before long, they were guided along a brief pathway to a pristine white private jet that awaited them, its engines softly purring. She struggled to keep her jaw from dropping, but it proved challenging. She had never envisioned that she would truly find herself in a situation like this. Within the jet's cabin, one could find an array of luxurious leather seats, gleaming wood paneling, and soft ambient lighting that radiated tranquility. With grace and charm, the flight attendant, Carla, welcomed them, presenting a selection of drinks and snacks. Harper settled into one of the seats, her heart racing from the unexpected turn of events. In one fleeting instant, she found herself in a situation akin to being held against her will. Moments later, she found herself aboard a private plane headed for Vancouver, bidding farewell. Adam settled into the chair opposite her, inclining his body slightly forward. "Very well, we will take to the skies shortly. Do you require any assistance?" She shook her head, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over from overwhelming relief. "Thank you," she murmured softly. "Thank you so much." He appeared troubled that she would even think to express gratitude towards him. "Harper, naturally, I only wish I had been aware earlier." The pilot's voice resonated through a small speaker, heralding their impending departure. Shortly thereafter, the jet glided from the executive terminal and onto a distinct runway. Harper looked out the window, reflecting on that other terminal, pondering how the staff who had treated her poorly would respond if they saw her now, seated in a private jet ready to bypass all the lines and fly directly to Vancouver. The difference was overwhelming shortly after we ascended. Adam unfastened his seatbelt and shifted to take a seat next to Harper. Carla offered them water, yet Harper sensed that something was amiss. Adam's jaw tightened, his gaze fixed intently on his phone. "Is everything all right?" she inquired. "The legal team is handling it," Adam murmured. "They are composing grievances. I desire for each individual who wronged you to face the consequences of their actions." Her fingers brushed against his arm. I value your input, but my desire is for change, not controversy. He offered her a constrained smile. Your generosity is appreciated, yet it's precisely why I cannot move on from this. You're not alone in this experience. Upon their arrival in Vancouver, a stylish vehicle awaited them, swiftly transporting them to a hotel by the water's edge. The transition felt otherworldly. From a secluded space in airport detention to an elegant suite with a view of the harbor. Harper sensed that she remained in a state of suspended anticipation. That evening, while indulging in room service, Adam's phone vibrated once more. According to eyewitness accounts, the staff ridiculed you, he stated. Referred to you as lacking in wealth. A con artist. Harper's expression dimmed. Adam extended his hand across the table. This concludes here. By morning, Adam found himself on the phone with airport directors pressing for answers. He sought identities, expressions of regret, and repercussions. Subsequently, an official by the name of Ms. Briggs reached out to Harper directly, her voice trembling with a practiced sense of remorse. Harper remained largely silent. Only a single line. I sincerely wish that others do not have to experience what I went through. Yet Adam had more to say. He scheduled a confidential gathering with the airport board. Harper became a part of the group. She recounted everything with a serene demeanor. The derisive expressions. The solitude. The flight that was missed. Silence enveloped the room. Adam maintained a calm demeanor. There was no necessity for him to do so. We have a stake in this airport. Not any longer. We're gathering all the elements. We are taking the bold step of going public. Their faces shifted subtly. Out of nowhere, apologies took on a new depth. Commitments were made regarding policies. Retrainings have commenced. Subtle dismissals ensued. And then destiny smiled gently. In a quaint bakery nestled in Vancouver, Harper caught sight of Officer Briggs. Isolated. Not on duty. Facing the frustration of a declined credit card at an ATM. The very man who had ridiculed her. At this moment, flushed with embarrassment. Embarrassed in the presence of unfamiliar faces. Their gazes intertwined. Me, he whispered under his breath. Indeed? She responded. Serene. Myself. He made an attempt to clarify. Procedure. Misinterpretation. She lifted a hand. You made me feel worthless. The responsibility lies with you. I trust you'll keep it in mind for the future. He remained silent thereafter. Simply vanished among the throng. In the weeks that followed, the headlines were abuzz. A prominent family withdrew millions from a significant airport project following a scandal involving profiling. Officials were in a state of alarm. Public anger intensified. Harper chose not to engage with the media. There was no necessity for her to do so. The announcement had reverberated through every corridor of the terminal. Refrain from forming opinions about others based solely on how they look. And if you do, hope they aren't married to someone like Adam Cook. Enjoying this tale? Give that like button a tap. Pass it along to someone who could use a touch of fairness today. And remember to subscribe for more tales that show the world that kindness is strength. Until we meet again.